All right, today we're jumping into a financial world that plays by a whole different set of rules. Imagine financing a huge purchase by separating the idea of using something from the idea of owning it. That's the core of what we're talking about today, as we break down one of the key tools in Islamic finance, Islamic leasing.
So think about it. For most of us, buying a house or a car automatically means getting a loan and taking on debt. But what if there was another way? A framework where you pay for the use of something instead of borrowing a lump sum of money to buy it. Well, this is the exact problem that Islamic leasing is designed to solve.
The main concept we need to get our heads around is called Ijara. At its heart, it's a leasing contract. A bank buys an asset, say a car, and then leases it to you. You're paying a fee, but not for borrowing money. You're paying for the right to use that car for a set amount of time. This right to use has a fancy name, usufruct. It sounds complicated, but all it really means is that you get to enjoy and use a piece of property that technically belongs to someone else. It's a huge mental shift from borrowing money to just paying for utility.
So you might be thinking, okay, but isn't that just a regular lease? Well, not quite. What makes an Ijara contract so different comes down to a really clear set of rules that spell out who owns what and who's responsible for what.
And this is where it gets really interesting. First up, the bank, the lessor, stays the legal owner throughout the entire lease. Now that's a huge deal, because it means they are on the hook for major maintenance. If the engine in your leased car has a serious issue, that's on them, not you. They're also liable if there's accidental damage, as long as you weren't being negligent, of course. In this setup, you're basically holding the asset in trust, with a very specific purpose spelled out in the contract.
Okay, so that's the theory. But what does this actually look like in practice? Let's walk through a basic, standard Ijara deal to see how all these pieces fit together. Take a look at this diagram. It lays out the whole flow for us. You've got three players on the field: the customer who wants the asset, the seller who has it, and the bank who acts as the lessor right in the middle. Let's trace the steps. Now, the sequence here is absolutely critical. It has to happen in this exact order. First, you find the thing you want. Let's stick with the car example. And you promise the bank you'll lease it. Only then does the bank actually step in and buy that car from the dealership. Once the bank physically owns the car, then you sign the lease agreement. You get the keys, and you start making your rental payments to use it. And when the lease term is over, in a simple, standard Ijara, it's super straightforward. The lease is done, and you just return the car to the bank. You paid for the usage, the contract is finished. End of story. But as you've probably guessed, this is just the basic version. So now let's level up. Let's see how this basic idea gets transformed into something way more common, especially when we're talking about financing homes or cars. This is the super popular lease-to-own model. And believe me, it has a very different end goal. This slide just lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got the standard lease where the asset goes back. But on the right, you have the lease-to-own model, which is called Ijara Muntahia thamlik. The massive difference is right there in the outcome. It's a lease that ends with ownership for you. And to make that happen, your payments are now doing double duty. They cover the usage, but they also chip away at the asset's original price. And this next diagram shows us exactly how this more complex structure plays out. It might look similar at first, but you really got to pay close attention to that final step, because that's the part that changes everything.
So those first couple of steps are going to look familiar. You make a promise, the bank buys the asset. But here is the twist. Your payment is now a combination. It's part rent and part payment towards the asset's total cost. And this all builds up to that final crucial step. Once all those payments are made, the bank transfers the legal ownership to you. Sometimes they'll sell it to you for a symbolic dollar or even just make it a gift. The point is, the promise is fulfilled and the asset is now yours.
Okay, so we've got the theory down, but why does any of this actually matter in the real world? Well, as it turns out, this structure is a huge deal for some of the biggest purchases we make in our lives. The lease-to-own model is the one you'll see most often for home and car financing, and it really does provide a true alternative to traditional mortgages and auto loans. But the concept is actually pretty flexible. It can be used to finance services like education or even travel, and it's also the backbone for certain types of Islamic bonds, known as sukuk.
This quote here really gets to the heart of it all. Think about buying a home. The end goal isn't just to rent it, right? It's ownership. The entire contract, from start to finish, is designed around that one single outcome to make sure that when that term is over, the property is yours, free and clear.
So all of this leaves us with a pretty big question to think about.
By focusing on leasing an asset instead of borrowing money to buy it, this whole model just completely reframes the financial relationship. It's a system built on tangible, real-world assets and a sense of shared responsibility. So does this clear line between paying for use and the concept of ownership offer a totally different way to think about what financial obligation and even debt itself really means? It's definitely some food for thought.